Fantasy Football Tips Podcast with Mills, JP, Quigliano, and Cliff.
Hi, you're listening to the fantasyfootballtips.co podcast. My name is Mills and I'm joined by Quigliano this week for the Game Week 29 preview. How are you, Quigliano? We've got a full set of fixtures this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with that. It's good to see the fixtures back. Pleasing to give us probably something more to discuss this week on the podcast. Generally, physical well-being has been maintained. I've just been for a run. I find that's helped mental well-being. This is part of my social well-being. So it's all, looking at Quigliano as a whole, doing quite well.
Fantastic. Good to see you keeping up that physical. That fantastic physique, Quigliano, and fatherhood has not affected you in that way, because all too often I hear people go downhill after fatherhood, so good to hear. We were scratching around a little bit last week, weren't we, with just the 4 fixtures, and it's definitely good to look at that sort of fixture list this week and think we've actually got something to talk about. So lots coming up in the show this week. We've got some questions from the fans. We're coming back with our proper podcast extra this week as well for the premium members. And obviously we're going to go through the usual Garys and Delias and so on. So just a quick word on last week for you, Quigliano. How was it?
It was a textbook situation of not backing yourself. Gary of the week was Lukaku, goal and assist. So I didn't go captain, obviously. Long shot. King, 3 goals and a missed penalty. Didn't put transfer him in, went for Leroy Fer instead. So all in all, a horrendous game week.
I think I was a big advocate of King last week, and again didn't back him myself, which massively backfired. And unfortunately, Joey Barton didn't get a hat trick, so it was all went wrong for me.
It's funny that, because it was on the cards, wasn't it? That hat trick.
It was. He's
Barton.
usually prolific, so I am surprised. One person who it didn't go so well for, though. I thought I had a bad week with 32 points. Someone, friend of the show, I say friend of the show, talking about JP. Do you know how many points he got last week, Quigliano?
I do, but you tell everyone. 2
points. That has got to be a record. 2 points. The man has gone missing. Mentally shot. He's just, I don't know what's going on with him.
Well, there's some issues, isn't there? There's a WhatsApp group. He has taken himself out of that. So actually, he had to spend a little bit of time on the sideline as punishment. And since we reintegrated him back in, he's then decided to have a tantrum and leave the group. He's captain Costa, vice captain Kane when they're not playing. It goes to show you where his head's at. And what type of man we're dealing with, okay? He's a worm. He's a worm.
Exactly. If I tell you the average point score last week was 19 points, he got 2. He had a game week rank of 4,077,000. Now, bear in mind, there's only 4.4 million players in the whole game, so it's pretty abysmal. Anyway, enough said about that. Let's take a look towards game week 29. Let's go straight in for the Gary, Quigliano.
Well, for those that can't be bothered, just listen to last week's podcast, because I'm re-tipping. It's poor form, I know, but I'm re-tipping Lukaku. I think out of everyone, they have the best fixture with a home game against Hull. Lukaku, is he playing to put himself in the transfer window, seeing as he's rejected the contract? I don't know, but I think it's goals for Lukaku. I think he's your guaranteed performer this week. The safest bet for those looking to guard themselves from anyone overtaking.
Yeah, I like that. Obviously that news on the contract rejection has come out today. Do you think that does affect him at all, Quigliano? Does that affect his performance, or is that something that's that contract? The negotiations have been ongoing, haven't they, for some time? So I'm guessing this isn't new for him. It's new news for us, but for him, probably not. So you don't think that is going to affect his contribution at all? You think he'll be absolutely fine?
You're asking me to get inside the mindset of Romelu Lukaku. I think I can do that. I think he's the type of player that is going to prove to the fans that it doesn't matter about money. He's going to go out there and he is going to perform regardless of whether he's staying or he's going. I'm basing that on the fact he's had a good couple of loan spells, and everywhere he went, he was successful. I think he's just he's looking out for his own career. He wants medals, he wants trophies. He's maybe not going to get those at Everton. Transfer window, I think it won't affect his FPL performance, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that, and I think he's a pretty solid choice this week. So the Xabi Alonso.
The long shot. Well, he can do it against Millwall. Can he do it against Southampton? It's old Sonny Jim himself. Son.
You didn't know his full name, did you? That was perfectly set up for a full name finish, and you just didn't know what it was. So.
Well, I've set you up there, mate. It's a tap-in.
It's a Heung-min Son, isn't it?
Great effort. Better than I would have done.
I mean, I'm saying that, I'm not even reading that. That is literally just... I could have got that completely wrong.
I think he's not a bad shout now. I think with Harry Kane missing, whether Janssen or Son starts in that centre forward position, he's down as a midfielder. He's very fairly priced. Spurs are at home to Southampton. I think it's not a bad long shot. I think most players have got Ali or Ericsson in their midfield. I think that's your long shot. That's your gap. But for maybe those that are chasing the lead or just chasing the players above them, Son's your option.
Okay, and we'll talk about the transfer options as well later on in terms of Kane. But before we do that, let's go to the dealer for this week.
The dealer then, player... Well, I say player that's been missing, but it's players. We've both discussed this, and again, I think this is more of a plea on our terms, but we're missing those West Brom clean sheets.
Yeah, dreadful.
Where are you? I think it was early February since they last had one, but that was your guaranteed. Fill your players with West Brom defenders or a goalkeeper, because they're a safe pair of hands. They're going to try and draw 0-0 or sneak a win. But they're not doing it. They're conceding.
Is it a case of complacency there, Quigliano, or sort of lack of ambition? They've hit 40 points. They know they're safe for the season, which I think for West Brom, all due respect to them, that is always their primary focus for the season. Let's be honest, that's what Tony Pulis is there for. But they have been playing more attractive football this season, and everyone sort of said, they're going to take it to the next level, but they look very much like, they've got that 40 points and they're happy with that.
I mean...
There's a long way to go yet, they could have a fantastic end of the season.
Well, yeah, they're 10 points off fifth, which is very respectable, although there's games in hand for Arsenal and Man United, so I'm sure they'll be further adrift. But it's, for me, teams like that need to set a precedent, like come and join us, we're a safe mid to top level team, get better quality player coming in. I just think it is... I don't know. I cannot. Maybe Pulis is trying to play a bit more expansive football to try and get the fans on side, and that's why they're leaking a few more goals.
Yeah, there's nothing expansive about a 3-0 defeat at Goodison Park, is there? And 2-0 defeat at home to Crystal Palace, who before that were pretty woeful. So, yeah, I agree with that. But let's move on, Quigliano. In fact, we're going to have a short break, and then we'll be back with some side tips.
You are listening to Mills and Quigliano on the FantasyFootballTips.co podcast. Sponsored by Premier Punt. All your fantasy Premier League tips in one juicy little podcast. Get in touch at www.fantasyfootballtips.co.
Quigliano, my favourite feature of every single podcast we do is the side tips. Let's hear your tips for this week.
Okay, I'm going to try and keep it a bit snappier. I've been waffling badly. Arsenal, West Brom, Sanchez. Palace versus Watford, Benteke.
This is very snappy. Wow, okay.
Chelsea, Costa. Pedro or Willian. Toss a coin and choose one of them. Both lethal. Where else am I going? I've got it written down in front of me. Spurs, Dele Alli. Man City, Aguero. Side tips done.
Wow, it's probably the worst feature of this podcast after that. But I like it. It's good. I think we probably need a little bit of discussion on that, a little bit of just very quickly, just give me some justification on some of those. Quickly.
I'm going to recap. I appreciate everyone's time's precious here, mine included. But I think we've just mentioned West Brom not getting the clean sheets. Arsenal. They've got to play. They've got to produce something for Wenger. Sanchez is world class. He's going to do something against West Brom. We talked about Benteke could have been the dealer because he's not doing enough at Palace. But, with players like Townsend and Zaha whipping the ball in, I see Benteke should be scoring a lot more goals. That's it back to his glory days at Villa when he had Downing and Ashley Young crossing the ball in for him. I think he's worth keeping in your team just as a cheaper striker. Again, Costa, we mentioned privately, he's not prolific in terms of he scores hat-tricks regularly, but he's a good drip feeder of goals. And I think he is definitely an option at Chelsea. And if you can guess whether Willian or Pedro is going to play, I think they're both quality players and should be starting week in, week out for Chelsea.
Yeah, they are. I think Pedro is the preferred option for Conte in the Premier League. But you are absolutely right. I mean, I saw the Willian display against Manchester United in the Cup, and it's just fantastic. They're both such good options, and they're so good value as well. It's just really frustrating that you can't really guarantee whether they're going to play. Okay, I like that, Quigliano. I've got a couple of questions for you here from Twitter.
I was going to tidy up the last two.
Go on then, Quigliano. Finish it off for me.
I think even without, I think we mentioned what the questions were, but I think Dele Alli, he gets into all the right positions for Spurs. He's got to be in your team or going in there at the very least. And I know there's a lot of players. I big him up every week, but Aguero just has to go in just for fear of not having him. If we'll reassess Aguero at the end of the season, but keep him every week until then.
Okay, yeah. Aguero's a funny one for me at the moment. I sort of fell out of love with him after the triple captain the week before. Sorry. So yeah, we'll see. So just on the Dele Alli one, that's an interesting one. There's a question here from Madster Villain. Will the absence of Kane affect Ali and Eriksen? Which I think is quite an interesting point. I agree with you, by the way. Well, in fact, I think I agree with the Son tip, but I do think he will be the one that starts up front. I don't think there's any concern of Janssen starting. I think he will remain on the bench, and I think particularly after Son's hat-trick in the Cup, he will start. So, but is there a risk that Ali and Eriksen and some of those other Spurs players that are getting assists from Kane's goals, is there a risk there? I mean, some people are saying that this is going to, ruin any sort of lingering chance of them, well, obviously of winning the league, but even of a top four finish, losing Kane at this stage.
I think Kane does bring out the best in all of those. That's what he's kind of that complete centre forward. He can do, he can beat a man, he gets a shot away, holds the ball up as well, which bring all of those features bring in the other players as well. And I think it does improve players like Eriksen and Dele Alli, having Kane as that threat. And by losing him, defences might probably be a little bit more relaxed now that they've not got to worry about Kane and can focus on their threats. I think Spurs are playing with confidence at the minute. I think, they probably go into most games thinking, even if they concede, they can score more goals than the opposition. And I think Dele Alli is a safe bet for points because he's just always in that right position. He's always bursting to try and get in that box. Probably, I wish Eden Hazard played a bit more like Dele Alli in terms of his need and his want for more goals. So I think Hazard's missing that at the minute from his game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Hazard, without a doubt, he's back to his best this season, and he's so talented. But I said this to you, I think, in the week that I always remember an interview I saw with Hazard where he sort of said it was about his mindset, and if he scores one goal, he's happy and he doesn't feel like he's got to score 2 or 3. He was sort of comparing himself to Cristiano Ronaldo and Gareth Bale. But I just thought he's on the cusp. He could be on the cusp of being one of those types of players. But it's, for me, again, like I said, it's mindset. He just needs to, and like you said, it's desire and that want and need to get in the box and score those goals. He's got the talent. He should be scoring more. Don't get me wrong, he's having a phenomenal season, but I think he could be doing better. So, okay, I think you've answered that question, Quigliano. And just for me to put my tuppence worth in, I think Son will just jump in and hit the ground running. I think that hat-trick that he scored, he's a confidence player. We saw him go on that run before. I think he'll go on that run again, and I think he is probably the player to put in. And to answer the question, I think Ali and Ericsson will continue to get the assists. So one more question, Quigliano, before we head into podcast extra. This is from Coolie Shaker. Should I play for differentials in a mini league if I am losing? So I think if he's if he's not winning his mini league, should he play sort of for differential players? Should he be making different options, different choices?
I think that links to me very well, something I can relate to. So for me, I'm only bothered about the mini league, about winning it. Okay, don't want to be anywhere else. Being second to me is worthless because there's no pride in it. There's no, well, I came second, I finished above you. That doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the following season, you only remember the person that won the league. So that is, to me, is what is important. So at the minute, I find myself falling. I'm at the lower end of the table. I need the risk. Okay, there's no point anymore playing for blockers. There's not enough game weeks left. I'm going to be playing risky captains. I'm going to be making the bolder transfers. I'm probably not sticking to what common sense tells me. Now, the risk of that is, it's called common sense for a reason. You back the best tip. So this weekend, let's say Lukaku probably should be my captain, but I will probably roll the dice, go somewhere else where I think the majority of my competitors won't go, and hope and pray.
Okay, well,
they have that explosive week.
We'll hear about that in podcast extra. Then I look forward to hearing that captain pick, Quigliano, because I think there'll be a lot of people in a similar. Well, obviously there's going to be lots and lots of people in a similar position because there's only one leader in each mini league. So, okay, yeah. Did you want to finish that point? I'm not sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It was just to kind of, that's my mindset in terms of wanting to be the winner. Some other people might be playing their mini leagues, but more be focused about that overall rank to show that they came in a certain position. I'm not bothered if I came in the bottom of the 4 million. As long as I won that mini league, I would be happy.
Okay, and I suppose again it depends how competitive your mini league is, doesn't it? So. But not the best season for you this season, Quigliano. By comparison, you've had you've had some fantastic results in the last few seasons, but this season hasn't been your season. But like you say, there aren't that many games left. We've got. Well, I
mean, it sounds like you're asking me to list them, and you're right. You're right to bring it up. I mean, it was the World Cup, different format, but I won the World Cup the following season. They said, well, he's won the World Cup. There's no way he's going to do anything. I then won the mini league. So then everyone was like, well, there's no way, and no one wins it back to back. And then I won it twice in a row.
Well, then, and then you've not won the Euros, and then you're not going to win this year. So,
I mean, as you say, didn't win the Euros. Technically, it's a cup competition, so I got the runners-up prize and the cash there as well. But you are right. This season hasn't been good. It has been conflicting. The birth of Quigliano Jr. has taken its toll. Work pressures have increased, but I need to take a champion's mindset. I can't look to blame anyone. Can't look for excuses. If you're going to play the game, you need to play it with your whole heart. And that next season, we'll learn from any mistake this season.
A very wise man once said to me, "If you point one finger at someone else, you should point 4 at yourself." So, I think there's lots to be learned from that.
Were those fingers dislocated? Because to do that, I think that would be quite concerning. I'd have gone, I think you need to get down A&E. Those fingers are not going in the right direction. But anyway.
Right, Quigliano, thank you so much for your time so far. We are going to go into podcast extra in a second. But just before we do, if you haven't been over to fantasyfootballtips.co lately, make sure you head on over there and check out the daily fantasy supplement. Make sure you have a look at the DraftKings article. There's now a link in the menu for that. And don't forget that if you sign up through the link, you get a free entry to the DraftKings competition. So please go to fantasyfootballtips.co and have a look at that. And also that's where you can sign up for premium membership if you're not a premium member and you want to hear Quigliano's alternative captain pick in the podcast extra. You'll hear mine too, and that will be coming up right after this.
The Fantasy Football Tips Podcast with Mills, JP, Quigliano, and Cliff.